welcome to the October 20th, 2021 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using as our state and community continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And thank you all for joining us. And with that, I will turn it over to the city manager for the work session on 1059 Willamette proposed terms.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm excited about both of today's work sessions because they're both really focused on downtown. And I was thinking about how when council sets your goals and outcomes, sometimes it's years down the road, we're still implementing things. And it was many years ago, but even as you refresh your goals, that downtown, having a thriving downtown has been important. So these are both really important projects to that thriving downtown. It's years of vision work, and sometimes it takes a while to get everything implemented. So it's still a good celebration. So I'll turn this over to Amanda.
Thank you, Sarah. And I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So good afternoon. I'm here today to discuss the redevelopment of the former Lane Community College building at 1059 Willamette. This is a follow-up to the June 19th work session where you took action to move forward with the submitted proposal for the Montgomery and directed us to begin negotiations with the development team. Before we dig into the terms, I want to connect how 1059 Willamette fits into the Housing Implementation Pipeline, or HIP, the city's systems thinking approach to coordinating housing efforts across the full housing spectrum. As you heard last week, Eugene needs housing across the housing continuum, shown here. The mixed income project at 1059 Willamette would be helping to create housing at 2 points on the continuum. First would be providing income qualified units for households at 80% of area median income, or AMI, an underserved population that would not qualify for typical affordable housing, but can't afford market rate housing. And it would be adding market rate housing units, which helps to make the project pencil. You'll remember this table from the HIP presentation, which shows the forecasted housing the city could support with existing resources. The units created with the Montgomery, the project at 1059 Willamette, would fit within the 230 mixed income units circled in red. The city has approached 1059 Willamette as a pilot project. The mix of resources the city has identified to support the project is an innovative approach to increasing our housing supply. It's different from our other affordable housing projects we've contributed to, and it would use fewer local and state resources. Our hope is if this project is successful, it can become a model that can be replicated, both in the type of housing, but also in how the city can creatively use financial tools to create more housing beyond our typical affordable housing tools. Finally, one of the HIP goals you heard about was the importance of downtown housing. A healthy and vibrant downtown is key to a strong community, and housing is a critical component of the effort to meet climate recovery goals and to create an economically vital and livable downtown. The redevelopment at 1059 Willamette would contribute toward the 5-year HIP goal of increasing the number of housing units downtown by 50% for an increase of 1,000 units, and would bring people and activity to an underused site along one of Eugene's great streets. We've been through this timeline a few times, so I won't go through each step of how we got here, but I want to highlight some of the key milestones to remember. First, that council approved the use of federal community development block grant funds to acquire the property, which establishes some key requirements for the project. That you held 2 work sessions and a public hearing last year to approve the request for proposals, or RFP, criteria, process, and incentives package. And that we received 1 proposal in response to the RFP, which you subsequently considered in June and directed staff to return with terms for redevelopment. I'll briefly touch on the request for proposals to remind you of the requirements and criteria that we were looking for. At the basic level, the project must be for mixed income housing, where at least 51% of the units are affordable to households with 80% of area median income or less. The other 49% could have any rental rate, and the mixed income housing needed to be maintained for a 20-year affordability period at a minimum. Because the property was acquired using federal funds, the project must comply with federal regulations, and the building must be completed and begin occupancy by April 2025. In addition to these, developers needed to demonstrate how their projects met the specific council-approved criteria, which are included in Attachment D. In September of last year, council and the agency board took action to make $1.1 million available with the RFP for potential public investment, consisting of downtown urban renewal funds and the anticipated MUPD moderate income housing fee from Gordon Lofts. As is customary for land bank sites, the RFP also assumed the property would be given to the selected developer for $1. The proposal we received was for a project called the Montgomery, submitted by a development team led by DeChase Mixis and Edlin and Company, and includes Raul Broca Architects, Cornerstone Community Housing, and Affinity Property Management. I'll recap some of the key features of the proposal, which is included in Attachment E. The project is a new 6-story, 129-unit building. It would consist of 66 income qualified units with rents affordable to households with incomes at 80% of AMI and 63 market rate units. At your June work session, you requested additional information on funding options to fill the $2 million gap if the project were to include fair market rents instead of the 80% AMI rents. Staff provided information on those options this summer, which are also included as Attachment F in your packet. The proposed project would maintain those 80% AMI income qualified rents or units for a 35-year affordability period, which is 15 more years than the required 20-year affordability period we asked for. The project would be completed by 2025 in order to meet the federal CDBG occupancy requirements. And I'll note that the estimated cost for the project was initially $30 million. However, updated construction estimates calculated this summer saw the project cost increase to $35 million. Cornerstone Community Housing would provide resident services to promote housing access, retention, and stabilization. 10 units would be set aside for Hope and Safety Alliance, formerly known as Women's Space. The building would have an active ground floor with spaces for below market incubator retail uses and local art. And it would include cost-effective green building features to be certified under the LEED multifamily program, and would include a number of amenities to support households with pets. The developer also proposed a dual design with 2 different facades. The Willamette side would acknowledge the historic context of the street, and the more modern 11th Avenue facade would respond to its location along a high traffic corridor. One of the topics that came up at the last work session was parking. The building includes 20 ground floor parking spaces. Building more parking underground would be costly, and the development team believes that they can use the existing parking downtown, and that residents who are going to opt to live downtown will seek opportunities to use other transportation modes, especially given the building's key location across from Eugene Station. Now, the reason why we're here today. In June, you directed us to negotiate terms for the disposition and redevelopment of 1059 Willamette. The proposed terms are included in Attachment A, and I'll go over some of the highlights. First, the development team would commit to building the proposed project with the elements I just described. They would commit to maintaining the mixed income housing, including the income qualified units, for no less than a 35-year affordability period. And they would commit to verifying the incomes of all households in the 80% AMI units at move-in. The development team would need to meet the federal environmental review requirements related to contamination and toxic substances, noise levels, stormwater management, and historic context. And closing of the property transfer and commencement of construction would start no later than October 2023, and completion of construction and start of occupancy would be no later than April of 2025. Finally, I'll touch on the terms related to the financial considerations for the project. It's important to remember that mixed income housing projects generally face a financial gap due to the limited rental income and inability to access traditional tools available for affordable housing. The city has a mix of tools to support 60% AMI projects, but we have a limited number of tools to support a project with 80% AMI units. The proposed terms shown here reflect the ways the city has previously identified that we can support a mixed income housing project at this site. And as a reminder, the current estimated cost for the project is $35 million. First, the property would be offered at no cost to the developer, which is standard for land bank sites. The 1.1 million that was listed in the RFP to support the project would be used to pay for specific project-related costs. Most likely, it would cover the SDCs, permit fees, and eWeb downtown connection fee. And then finally, the team intends on applying for a MUPTI for this project, which would entail the standard MUPTI application process, including neighborhood engagement, the review panel, and council action. If council approves the proposed terms in attachment A, here's what potential next steps could look like. First, we'd enter into an illegal agreement for the transfer of the property and then begin due diligence. During this time, the team would begin to raise equity, acquire financing, and refine their design. Based on their current timing, the team estimates that they would be applying for the MUPTI in late 2022. And per the terms and the CDBG imposed deadline, the development team would need to complete construction and start lease up no later than April of 2025. With that, we'll end on the city manager's recommendation and hand it back to you for discussion, and we are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the presentation and a lot of information in a short amount of time, and it is really exciting to be at this point. And I see that Emily has a question already, so I'll turn it over to Emily.
Okay, thank you for that summary. It was indeed concise and explanatory. I have one, and I like this project. I'm going to vote for it. I think it's the sort of thing we're looking for. Really interested in seeing how the mixed income works out, because I think that that could be an especially good tool as we get denser, not dumber, just denser. And one question is that corner building that's not included. If it gets sold and something's built on it, are there any restrictions? Because if it was 6 stories high, all of a sudden, all those windows on the inside of the L would be gone.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can impose any restrictions since it's privately owned. And yeah, I know that the developers tried to approach the owners to see if there's interest in selling, but weren't able to make any progress. I don't know, Will, if you have anything to add.
I can just say that that the building code takes into account this sort of condition generally, and so there's expectations about the relationship of windows and the building envelope between when you build up against a property line. So I don't know the specifics of that, but they've taken into account fire safety. That's the prominent one, fire safety, so that you wouldn't have another building with windows that are, you know, this far apart from the windows across it. There's enough space there to create a safe environment.
Well, it's not going to change my vote, but I'd be interested in knowing, you know, what kind of setback and height zoning allows there, because I see that as a potential big down for that building in the future if that happens, and we still need to keep market rate up high. So if I was building it, that'd be something I'd be concerned about, and I am building it, so I'm concerned about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy, and then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, for the succinct presentation. I think it covered the points well. I too had some concern about proximity to a future building that Councilor Semple brought up, and I was concerned with the fire exposure, but I'm sure we have ways of mitigating that. A question I do have, considering we're targeting households earning between 60 and 80% AMI, and the fact that we're checking or the owners are going to check and confirm that before rental and occupancy. Is there anything that checks that down the road? Let's say somebody gets in and they're 70% of AMI, but a year later they take a different job and they're above 80% AMI. Are they still eligible to stay there? Again, I'm just more interested in the mechanics.
Yeah, and I'm maybe Ellen can chime in, but I know it's typical with
I may have to chime in, I think.
Good comeback.
Sorry, Amanda, you froze. I don't know.
yeah, go for it.
Okay, I was just going to say that the mechanics of the CDBG requirements around income verification are only to verify incomes at the point of moving into the property. With all of our HUD programs, it's not allowed to evict someone because their incomes rise. It's encouraged. At some point in time, with some HUD programs, if your income rises to a certain amount, then you're required to pay a higher rent. That's reflective of your income, 30% of your income. But for the CDBG program, they don't have that restriction in place. So basically, it's good for that person who was low income and is no longer low income. So they're allowed to live in the property as long as they want.
And thank you. And I wasn't advocating for anything other than that. I just wanted to understand the mechanics of how this worked. And I'll just add, I do think it's important that we do have some market rate housing created downtown, because that helps support our local businesses that are downtown as well, which is part of the healthy economy. At the same time, I'm going to be very interested to see how this experiment with mixed income housing works. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the property, and like Councilor Semple, I intend to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and then Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of stuff that I like about this and some things I don't like about this. I really like that it's half of it's going to be income eligible for 80% of AMI, so 66 units, and 63 units at market rate. So I think that's great. That's exactly what we were asking for, and it's exactly what we got. So good for the responders and good for us. I like that there's 10 units set aside for victims of domestic violence in partnership with Women's Space. I think that's awesome. I like that there's art in the lobby and a mural. I like that there's retail space on Willamette and 11th, and an incubator space for low income startup businesses. I like that it's LEED multifamily. I like that it's connecting to Eugene Net. I like the pet amenities part of the building. And the subsidy level seems about appropriate for me, from us, the 1.1 and the $500,000 to 1.6 million. And I really like that there's $35 million of investment going into downtown. What I don't like is that the architecture is really uninspiring. It's just an inspiring box. It's cheap. It's too bad. I think the new stuff that we're building, with some exceptions, is not doing well for our city in the long run. As far as MUPD concerned, I don't like MUPD, and I haven't voted for MUPD, but this is a project where I think we're exactly trying to get what we're trying to get out of the MUPD program, which is affordable housing units. And I think that's great. What's problematic is that our housing tools and strategies that we've been working on, as far as I can tell, we're a year and a half into it or longer, and the only affordable housing units we are going to get are units that we subsidize in programs like this. Otherwise, the market and the home building community is not building any affordable housing units, as far as I can tell. And we're not even and it's very difficult to get that data because we're not even tracking it. So I wonder if the council's okay with, we're not going to get any more affordable housing units out of the marketplace. It's all just going to be on subsidized housing projects like this. And if that's what, I don't think that's what we should be doing, but that's a different conversation. Real quickly on the fair market rate, getting the $2 million, I'm not in favor of that. Not willing to increase the spending limit or I want to use the urban renewal dollars for other projects and the CET money. We have a good plan with that, with renter assistance and affordable housing units, and the MUPD dollars using it on shelter, and there's no immediate grant. So that makes this whole, if we were trying to pursue something, it would blow up the timeline. So not in favor of all that. And on balance, I think this is a very good project. It's what we're looking for, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to Alan, this mixed income affordable housing along a tier 1 transportation line has a lot of boxes checked that are positive, including but not limited to the pet amenities, the partnership with Women's Space, in the laundry list of positive accolades that Councilor Zelenka listed off. I want to hone in on the 35-year affordability piece. A generation from now, will we be doing future Montgomery residents a disservice? Is the 35-year the legal minimum? And considering this is an experiment in mixed income affordable housing, what other tools in our toolbox would help bolster or boost that 35-year minimum or 35-year affordability number?
So the 35 years, so we asked for in the RFP a minimum of a 20-year affordability period. So the development team came back with a longer affordability period, which we weren't expecting. So that's, I think, an important element. I think changing that affordability period would require them to have to take a new look at their financing and how that would work, because it would change their financial models, their long-term financial models.
Okay, it's not going to hold up my vote or my enthusiasm for this project. I just wanted to hone in on that. Considering this is an experiment, I would love to see how future projects like this could have an extended affordability life.
Yeah, thank you. I just a question, because we do, is it the LRT which comes back and we renew those? Yeah, so there is a different mechanism that we're not using on this. Could you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have the LRT program, which is a 20-year tax exemption for low-income housing, which I believe it's 60% AMI or lower. And so that tax exemption can be renewed every 20 years, but they would have to maintain that 60% AMI income qualified units. And I believe it's 100% of the units are at that income threshold.
Yes, just to clarify that there are other housing developments in which that happens, and 35 years is a pretty significant duration for a rental property. So, yeah, Emily.
Thank you. I agree, 35 years is long. It's 15 more than we wanted. And I would also like to support the idea that it could be more beautiful. And I thought that the first time we reviewed it. I think that we are not putting up beautiful buildings for the most part, and we've taken a bunch down. And if we expect this building to have 35 years of affordability, and then I would assume more market rate to make some more money, let's hope the building is still standing there and is still beautiful enough to deserve standing there. So I would encourage, with the subtle redesigns that happen during a project, that there be some more emphasis on the exterior aesthetics, which will not only make the residents feel more content and proud of where they live, but will affect everybody who sees the building. So I'm really for this. but I would like to see some more beauty. Thanks.
I'll add in, I assume that the development team is hearing this or will hear it very soon. As part of the MUPD process, one of the public benefits through that process is the project design. And so we outline a number of criteria they have to meet to produce good design. And so through that process, you will see more refined designs of their building. And at that point, as you know, the drawings get attached to approved MUPD resolution, so they have to deliver on that building. So this isn't your only opportunity to provide feedback on the design, and there will be future opportunities. And I know they've heard you say it, and they've heard from the community, the survey. I think there was some desire to see some different features.
Thank you. And Matt, another comment?
Yeah, ever so quickly, Mayor, when I look at page 6 or page 4 of the attachment of the slide presentation that Amanda presented us, I'm actually going to stand in the architect's corner. I like the design. I think it's slick. I think it's clean. I think it's modern. It's welcome. And especially, Amanda, if you have the ability to go to page 2, that was the shot that I think is from the Eugene Public Library that looks east over the bus station, the LTD station. Is that, yeah. I hadn't seen this perspective before presented in this fashion, and considering the dilapidation of the old Montgomery Ward of the old downtown Lane Community College building and the opportunity to have a sleek new design there, this is an inspiring shot. It's almost high noon. There's activity at LTD's main transit station. You can barely see Spencer's Butte to the right, but cranes are in the air and blue skies, and this is a wonderful mural right in the center of our, in the heart of our community. This is an inspiring piece, an inspiring project, and it is a bit subjective when we talk about the aesthetics, but I welcome the work, and I think it's going to it's going to be embraced and enveloped into our landscape perfectly, and I applaud the project. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I thank you for ending on that slide, because that actually was a very exciting picture to include in the deck. And I also, on the aesthetics, I'm interested in it. There seems to be a style, because the Fifth Street Market expansion also has that sort of yellow brick facade, and I'm assuming that is, I mean, both the Gordon Hotel was also intended to represent an earlier history, and I think these designers were aiming for an earlier history. So it's kind of a interesting aesthetic challenge to reflect a past architectural design that may not resonate so well with all modern viewers. So so they have their work cut out for them, pleasing us all on that design. Thank you all very much. And I think if there are no other comments, Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you to put a motion on the table.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. Move to approve the terms in attachment A and to authorize the city manager to enter into a real property transfer agreement consistent with the terms included in attachment A.
Second.
Any other further comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. That is unanimous. And that's excellent. Very excited to see that project moving forward. Really, really just a long time coming. And it's just going to be a terrific addition to our downtown. So thank you for your work and your presentation.
Go forth and do good.
And with that, I will adjourn the meeting of the Eugene City Council and convene the meeting of the Eugene Urban Renewal Agency for our next work session item on downtown open space improvements. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to just ask Will Dowdy to jump on in.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Will Dowdy. I'm the Community Development Director, and I am here to talk with you about the Willamette Connection and downtown urban renewal open space. I will share my slides here, and hopefully you can see my screen, and you've got a big screen right there. Okay. And And hopefully you're not seeing all the pop-ups that are popping up on my screen either. Okay. Let's get started. As you know, this is one of 4 urban renewal projects, and I wanted to take a minute as we get into this just to give you a quick status check on where we are with all of these different projects. So starting off, downtown broadband, UGNet, that project is done. We're starting to turn our attention to something that you've talked about in the past, which is how that network could get expanded out to the community, figuring out the feasibility of something like that. That's a larger conversation. It's not an urban renewal conversation, but that's something that we're getting ready to have information about. You just heard about 1059 Willamette, so I don't think you need a whole lot from me on that one. Today we're going to be talking about especially the open space part. And so let me tell you a little bit about where we stand with the farmers market. This is a picture, an aerial view by Paul Gordon, City of Eugene employee, in a drone, not on a ladder or anything like that. And this is where we were in the summer. And you can see the construction underway. Seasons change, we get some clouds, but the site has really changed a lot. There's been a great transformation there. They have moved into the demolition of West Park Street, and I'll show a close-up of that. And what's very exciting is that you can see where the slab is for the pavilion. And this is the first time where it's really easy to see the shape and the size of that pavilion and how it's going to sit within the context of the park blocks. You can see the plaza space immediately in this view to the left, to the east. You can see the way that it will connect in with the other park blocks, and the opportunity for West Park Street to become a really dynamic environment, even more so than it is today, connecting with local businesses and an opportunity for the farmers market to spill out from the pavilion. So I've been very excited to see these images and see how it's coming along. One of the things that you can look forward to is seeing the CLT wood structure coming out of the building. That's the cross-laminated timber. The pieces will be coming in November and start moving into a vertical building. So that'll be exciting. Let's see. Let's go in a little bit. This is West Park Street. You can see that it's ripped up. This is the beginning of creating this street as a shared street, a curbless street, which will be able to have business access and business parking, but also be very easy to close off for events and festivities, and spill out from the farmers market. You can see here that Authentica Wines, Park Street Cafe, Jazzy Ladies are still open. They not quite as visible during the construction time, but the food is as good as ever. And so looking forward to an opportunity to open that up and give them that good front door or back door opportunity for them. This work should all finish up in the next couple of weeks. And then we start turning our attention to Oak, and the sidewalk area on Oak will see some construction and as part of the extension of the plaza all the way up into the street. Not into the street, but up to the curbs. And something that we've heard a lot of interest in, this is on the other side of 8th Avenue. This is the southwest corner of the Southwest Park block, looking south. A lot of souths there. This is where the new freestanding restroom is going to go. These lines were painted out there this week. They may have already started cutting it today. Very excited to see this part happening. This has been a longstanding item, and construction is underway now, and hope to have the loo completed in time for World Kindness Day in the middle of November. That's not one of our stated goals, but it just happens to work out that way. So that's a little bit of a tour. All in all, for the Farmers Market Pavilion and the project, we are able to overcome some supply chain challenges that we've had, just like ordering things from your favorite store. It's also hard to order big, structural wood and polycarbonate glazing systems and things like that. But all in all, we are still on track to have the whole site open and ready for the new farmers market season coming up next spring. So now, talking about the matter at hand today, park blocks and open space spending, especially related to the Willamette connection. Here's where we stand in the process. We always like showing you this slide because we want you to understand where we are in the context of a larger process, starting with the council amendment back in 2016, moving through the community engagement and project scoping to the council review #1, which is when I presented this project to you in early September. Earlier this week, you had the public hearing on this topic, and here we are today with council review #2, and you have some options at the end of the meeting available for you to take action. You can choose not to implement the project, or you can choose to move forward with the project. And if so, then the question is, should you use urban renewal funds for it? So it's a two-part question. And now I want to kind of quickly move through these slides. These are slides you've seen before, so don't expect new content and material, but I thought it'd be helpful just to remind you where we are, to make sure you are remembering the key aspects of the project, and also for anyone who's just tuning in so that they have a little bit of familiarity with what we're talking about today. So the first thing is that this project, what we're talking about today, is the initial phase of a larger project that's intended to really transform this public space that's between the Halt Center, Eugene Conference Center, and Graduate Hotel. It also happens to be a section of Willamette Street between 6th and 7th, and so as such, it's an important connection point between areas south of 7th Avenue, which we often think of as the traditional core of downtown, and areas north of 6th Avenue, which is a place where we've seen a lot of investment recently, and we hope to see a lot more as we carry forward with the riverfront development. So it's an important place because of the institutions that are around it, but also important as a connection. This is the view from the north. As I talked to you about before, you remember that sometimes this space looks great. Other times it's a little bit less green. And then I highlighted for you that the ADA access up to the upper level in front of the Eugene Conference Center is both substandard and at times dangerous. This is the view from the south. Again, you have the same kind of issues with grade as the crosswalks land into the space. And it's not something that is as inviting as we would like to get people to move from one side of the street to the other. So specifically, the improvements that we're talking about today, the kind of the first phase of this larger project. And I should say, again, that it's conceived of as phase 1, but really, if this is all that we do, these will be improvements that can stand on their own. And so this is not something that puts us into a bind about a future decision, but this is something that we can be really excited about achieving if we move forward with this project. So on the upper left, the North Gateway, the opportunity to provide a landing space for people who are coming across the street, something to draw them in with just an easier path to navigate through and to come onto the plaza area. And then that focus on the ramp coming up with a better, more welcoming and safer access to the upper level. On the south and the bottom right hand of the screen, again, it's that connection, something to draw someone either standing at Sessions or the Parkade to draw them north, or if for someone who's walking out of the Halt Center after enjoying a good show, to draw them, help them on their way across the street to spend their time and money within the rest of downtown. This is the project budget, our initial schematic budget that we presented before. The project costs in the upper $400,000 is our estimate. Public Works has funding of $70,000 to offset those costs. And so what we end up with is $390,000 to $430,000 of a project cost. There's $400,000 of urban renewal available. And so that leaves us with one of 3 scenarios. Either the urban renewal funding could be right on the nose. We could be a little bit with a little bit of a surplus, or we could be a little bit of a deficit. And because of the volatility we've seen in the construction market, we think it's really important for us to highlight this range and highlight these different options, and to have a contingency plan as part of our conversation with you. So in the event that there is money left over, we have included in in our initial presentation, in the public hearing, and in all of the materials, the idea that we would spend additional funds on sidewalk improvements and on alley lighting as far as those dollars go. And if there's not enough funding through urban renewal to cover the full project cost, and assuming, of course, that we go through an appropriate value engineering process and everything like that, we would be left with one of two situations. Hopefully, we'd be able to find additional funds somewhere else. But if in the event that we're not able to do that, our proposal is that we would focus on the north entry and leave the south entry as a phase 1B or phase 2, focusing on doing part of this right, and then saving a kind of a standalone scope for another time. So here's the vision that the artists put together. You can see again kind of the focus on a safe and easy landing space on the south side of the street. This is looking across 6th Avenue from the north. You can see the improved ADA access on the left. You can see more transparency and ultimately more safety around the Japanese memorial right in the center. Again, as we talked about then, this project abuts but does not include any changes to the memorial itself. And I wish I had that, if I'd known, would have put that same aerial shot of the mural, just because I love that one, over the LTD bus station. But I think this is a pretty good drawing, and so I'll leave you here, and with the two questions for your deliberation about should the open space improvements move forward, and if so, should urban renewal funds be used? I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And this is a very actually wonderful graphic that you're closing with. So thank you very much. It is a vast improvement over the way that end of the pathway currently functions and looks. So I appreciate the work. Emily and then Matt have questions.
Thank you. That was a really good wrap up of everything we're doing with this part of the urban renewal. And oh boy, am I happy about that restroom at the park block. It's been a long ask, and Eric Brown, the downtown manager, and I went through many iterations and tryouts of different things that would work. So this is going to be fantastic. Thank you. This open space project, I've been working for a long time, campaign to keep some of the urban renewal money for open space. I think our green space and our connections are vital to the thriving downtown. And another one of my concerns is having a bridge from downtown and the expansion of 5th Street and the riverfront. So I think this is critically important to stimulate and energize that space. It is looking kind of blighted now. So I think it fits right in with urban renewal goals to bring more business. And then it's going to be safer, both for ADA and the open sight lines. There's a very narrow bottleneck by the garden. That'll be wider and safer. And if we have extra money, more safety with lighting and sidewalks, it's going to help everybody. And it will be more beautiful, not just space-wise and safety-wise, which will be better for the Memorial Garden. And if you're at a conference or you're at the Holt Center, it will be more comfortable. So I think it's good planning for an unknown future. If we have the money, if we don't have quite enough money, being flexible and planning a project that if it cannot continue right away is still a big improvement and accomplishment. So I appreciate the work of the team that has worked on this. I think it's a pretty good investment of our money, and that we're going to get a lot out of it, and it fits right in with what we're doing with the farmers market and park block. So I look forward to your support for this.
Thank you, Matt, and then Alan.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Like Councilor Semple, I really appreciate the work in regards to building or increasing public restroom space around the park blocks. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the sensitivity around the memorial as well. I'm curious, and Will, we may have covered this at our last, the last time this was in front of council as an urban renewal agency. What were the other open space improvements that were considered? Was the safety and beautification of Broadway and or Kesey Square considered?
Yes, that's a good question. We looked at a number of different opportunities, and Kesey Square was certainly something that we looked at. We've looked at ways to make incremental improvements to the park blocks, and really the restroom was the one that we settled on there. We also looked for opportunities around the library and the public space that's in front of the library, and kind of on all four sides of that intersection, because those are all public institutions. The opportunity at the Halt Center felt like it was one that had it felt like the right scale for the amount of money that was available. And it also felt like something that was very timely, because it had the opportunity to transform that connection, as Councilor Semple described, that opportunity to really capitalize on new investments north of 6th and new investments south of 7th, and to try to get really a 1+1=3 kind of scenario by creating synergies between these new investments. And so that's what really, those two things, I guess, really led to the selection of this as our preferred location to start.
Thank you. The last time we talked, I inquired about engagement with local businesses around there, from 6th Street Grill to the north, and I forget the name of the barber shop, but it's one of my favorite barber shops in town, because they always have like a kegerator of Oakshire or something, and then it's right just south of 7th. What's the engagement been like with the businesses in that area, and overall, what's been the engagement with the community? I would surmise that if you were to sample, couple hundred downtown business goers or downtown business owners about what they would want to see improve downtown, I think you'd be hard pressed if a majority of them said the space between the Graduate and the Holt Center. So I'm curious about not only the engagement with the businesses around that area, what led you to say that this space, that the public's behind urban renewal dollars with this space in particular?
Thanks for that. That's I think that is one of the ongoing challenges working with downtown, is to try to sort out all of these priorities and all of these needs. Certainly there's a lot of things that rise to the top of people's lists. And I think that the conversation around public space has been an interesting part of that larger look at downtown. The outreach that we've done has been in a series of stages, and looking at and so I guess as we most recently, our primary outreach has been talking with groups like Downtown Eugene Merchants, Downtown Eugene Incorporated, Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I think talking through the values of this project, and we're always hearing people express their concerns and frustrations and ideas for downtown. I'll just go back a little bit to that, what I was saying before, that I think what we see with this project is the opportunity to create something that's not there, rather than just a mere improvement. And so because I understand that that increasing or making a cleaning or a level up improvement to one public space can only go so far. But when you increase the ability for people to get from one place to another, or the desirability of going from one place to another, that's in the end, I think, what creates a new experience of downtown. And so that became the thing that really caught our attention, and the people that we've talked to about how this can be a dynamic change for this north edge of downtown.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, Alan, and then Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. There are very limited uses for urban renewal dollars. This project fits within that. Maybe, Will, you could just give a slight little primer on the plan, the uses and the rules around spending the money for and what it can be spent on. Because it's not, we can't just build anything with this money or use it for anything.
Absolutely. There's a couple, the first important rule around urban renewal is that it needs to be spent within the district. And so it's a district that's defined. It's not a district shape that would make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but it's a district shape that's been, it's available on our website, and it's part of the founding documents of the way that the district has been put together. So it has to be spent within that boundary. It needs to be spent on capital improvements. So for example, it can't go fund staff, or can't fund events. It's about capital projects. And then within those kind of overarching objectives for the district, it needs to be spent on something that has been approved in the downtown urban renewal plan. And that's specific to the way that the 2016 plan was set up. There was a decision at that time that the urban renewal funds could only be spent on 4 projects. And so those 4 projects were the ones that I identified at the beginning. It's the downtown broadband network. It's the farmers market project. It's the 1059 Willamette building. And it's the last category is park blocks and open space. And that really applies to any of the open space within the downtown boundary.
Great, thanks for that. That was a good overview. You did that pretty well. This is a long-standing ask and a long-standing plan. In particular, those 4 segments in the open space, going back to 2016 and before, when we're planning this new one. And thanks to Emily for being so dogged about making sure we are working on this. I think the bathroom is exciting too. I like the flexibility in the way that you're moving forward. I like the connection to downtown and 5th Street market developments. That is an important part of it. It's a modest amount of money. I think the flexibility helps give me confidence that we'll be using it well. It enhances safety with the lighting and the openness. So I think that's important, especially with that connection between the 2 parts of downtown and 5th Street. It enhances the Japanese internment memorial, which I think is one of the most hidden gem in our city. And I think this will make it much more visible and much more appealing. And I think finally, it makes the city more beautiful and inviting. And if we only spend money on problems and functionality, we never get to beautification. And we end up with an old and dilapidated looking city. So I think what Eugene looks like is important, and that we need to keep an eye on that too. It's not an or thing, it's an and thing. So we can do this and the other things that we need to do in the downtown core area. So I'm very supportive of this. I hope it works out, that we can get this to look like the drawings. The drawings are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy, and then Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Will, for the presentation. I like the idea of improving our gateways into downtown, but I'm curious what other projects are in the queue or foreseeable that would be in competition for urban renewal funding. Since we're going to be drawing, if we go forward with this, we'll be drawing our bank account down to basically 0.
This becomes the last kind of unspoken for, or this $400,000 is the last unspoken for money in the urban renewal district. And so that was part of why I wanted to provide that summary at the beginning, because this is the last of the decisions that you need to make as an agency board about allocating funds. Really it goes back to those 4 projects. And so if there's, so you could choose to spend this money on the downtown fiber projects where there's no clear needs within the district. You could spend it further on the farmers market project, and I'm sure our architects could come up with other ways to add to that project. You could spend it further on 1059 Willamette, and then you could spend it on other needs for open space.
Okay.
And so that's the list.
Okay, thank you. That helps. And then how much have we had going into the urban renewal account each year? I don't recall off the top of my head.
I don't know that number off the top of my head. I believe it's oh, Amanda, perfect.
Yeah, it's between $2 and $3 million of property tax revenue to the
Great.
downtown district.
Thank you. I like what's being presented here. I like the ideas. I like how it is incorporating and opening up our Japanese memorial. I think that's important. And I understand that our Asian community has weighed in on this already, correct? And then I guess another question I have, kind of taking a step back, in your opinion, is our current urban renewal district the right shape and size?
I think that there's certainly a policy. Most of that is a policy question, which I defer to you on. What I would say is that it's a pretty good overlay of what most people would call the downtown core. It's got a little bit of a quirk, here and there, and it, moves out this way and over that way. But in general, for the most part, if you were to say someone, meet me in the middle of downtown, and that's all you knew, you would find yourself in the downtown urban renewal district. And so I think from that standpoint, it has been successful in trying to, it seems like the shape is matching what the intents have been for the district. Beyond that, I think it becomes a policy question.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering because we're adding some pretty nice areas into close proximity of what we consider downtown. Be it the riverfront, Fifth Street area. I don't think this is a pressing issue, but I'm hopeful that some point in the future we can maybe have more information on that and maybe have a discussion just as a check and see where we are. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but it does seem like it's nice to have this funding mechanism to, continue evolving our downtown and what may become our downtown in the future as we continue to grow as a community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks. So I got kicked off. So if I disappear again, it's my connection and you should move on without me. So first, Will, thank you so much for the presentation. I really also appreciated to get those aerial views of what's going on. It's so exciting to see the Farmers Market Pavilion actually coming to reality. That's very exciting, and also our downtown restroom is also very exciting, although not quite as big scope. It's still important, and I really appreciate how you focused on the ramp, because when you showed pictures of it, it looks scary. I mean, I think it's very appropriate that we're spending funds on that, and I'm glad to see it got into phase 1. I was wondering if you can remind me how much the full project is expected to cost with however many phases you're envisioning.
Oh, the last that I heard for the full project was about $2.5 million. I would need to go back on that before we were in any conversations where we were taking that number seriously, but I think that a $2 million range is probably about right.
Okay, I would just wanted to get kind of an idea of what the full project. I couldn't remember. Thank you, Will. And I will also be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're probably ready for a vote, but I just wanted to chime in that I did love your comment that the bathrooms are scheduled to be open on World Kindness Day. And this has been definitely a message that Emily has brought to this council, that it is a kindness to offer bathrooms to people. So well done, good scheduling. And I think that this, in some ways, this connection along Willamette in this pathway is overlooked, partly because it was so badly designed. It actually gets quite a bit of use. I mean, anytime there's an event at the Holt Center, people are walking along that pathway, and often at night. And anytime there's an event at the Graduate Hotel, people are walking along that pathway. So it actually is a major thoroughfare. And as Jennifer just pointed out, it looks, and you did in your slide, is pretty slippery and hazardous looking, and is very dark. So I think it's a pretty significant improvement when we think about just pedestrian safety. It's a pretty significant one, as well as I like Alan's comments about beautifying it. It matters that we beautify our city. So I'm excited about all of this. I really appreciate all of the work that went into it and the thoughtfulness about it. And I'm very excited to see it take place. And I also just wanted to say, I very much agree with your criteria that the northern end is the one to really pay attention to if the funds are tight, because that is by far the worst end. And so thank you very much. And I think with that, Jennifer, we're ready to put a motion on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I move to approve the use of $400,000 of downtown urban renewal tax increment funds for the Willamette Connection project and other downtown open space improvements.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1. We're in favor, 1 opposed, and that passes. So thank you very much. And you have all just reclaimed another half hour of your life. We are finished a half hour early. Thank you all. Good work and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.